I'll do it again for the recording. Hello everyone, welcome to DenverScript July 2025. Good to see some new faces, some old faces. This is our code of conduct, the abridged version. If you want to see the full version, DenverScript.com/code-of-conduct. I will read this to you. DenverScript is dedicated to providing a harassment-free community for everyone. Participants violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the community at the discretion of the DenverScript organizers. If you're being harassed, notice that someone else is being harassed, or have any other concerns, please contact a DenverScript organizer immediately. Your organizers are myself, my name is CJ, we've got Cass back there, and then also Chad, right there with the cookie. And Marlena is also an organizer, but she is not here tonight. But yeah, any issues, come talk to us. If you don't feel comfortable talking to us, send an email to DenverScript@gmail.com. We will see it. And the ground rules for tonight are to be kind, don't talk over the organizers or speakers, and there will be time for Q&A after both of the talks. And we just ask that you ask constructive questions. Don't try to prove a point or have any sort of gotcha for the speaker. We're all here to have a good time. Thanks to our sponsors. The space we're in right now is called Code Talent. They're a technical recruiting agency that knows the difference between Java and JavaScript. And if you are looking for work as a person, an individual, or if you're a company that's looking to hire people, reach out to them because they're great. There's some business cards over there, but we appreciate them because they let us use this space. And then the pizza was provided by the wonderful Cass. So if you want to throw a couple of, clap for that. If you want to throw a couple of dollars her way, she's Cassandra-T on Venmo. I'll leave that up there for a couple of seconds. And with that note, we're always looking for sponsors. So if your company is looking to get their name in front of the DenverScript community, reach out to us, DenverScript@gmail.com as well, and then you could sponsor the food instead of us. All right, like I just mentioned, DenverScript@gmail.com, and we're always looking for speakers. I'm thinking next month we might actually do lightning talks. So if you have anything you'd like to talk about in 8 minutes, it's a very short talk. If you've never given a talk before, it's a great way to try it out. Submit your talk at DenverScript.com. And it could be, I just learned a new library and here's what I like about it. Or I just built a project and here's what I did to build it. Or it could be, this is why I don't like X, or this is why I like Y. You could give a lightning talk about anything. You could give a lightning talk about raccoons as well. That's happened before. Think of one, submit it, DenverScript.com. We'll likely do that next month. Let's talk about the news. So all of these links are at DenverScript.com. In the menu bar, there's a link here for news, and then this is July's news here. First up, there was some malware that was pushed to NPM. Anybody hear about this? Yeah, so check your dependencies. So ESLint config prettier, the maintainer of this package, who here uses ESLint config prettier, or has used it before, yeah. The maintainer of this package got phished, and then they pushed some malicious versions of the package that had malware that only affects Windows, but it did have malware inside of it. And this is crazy because this package gets downloaded 30 million times a week, so it had quite the spread. This post is linked. It mentions the exact affected versions. Let's see. Yeah, so of all of so every single one of these versions listed here had malicious code inside of it. So when you get home, check your package lock and make sure that you're not using any one of these versions. If you haven't run, if you had a package lock, you're probably good. If you haven't run like a new install of any of these libraries anytime recently, you're probably good as well. But it'd be good to check. I think NPM already removed those bad versions of the package from the registry as well. But it's crazy to think about that a single developer clicks, I think, was it like, he tweeted about it. Let's see exactly what happened. Was tricked by a phishing email and a new NPM token was added and leaked. Then some popular packages I'm maintaining were released with malicious software. So he clicked a link in his email because his account had access to publish here, potentially affected millions of developers. So that's a thing. ES 2025 was officially released this month. Lots of new features. We've got import attributes, And JSON modules, iterator helper methods. So these work with like async iterators that give you like map, filter, reduce on iterators, which is pretty cool. There's a bunch of set methods to find like the difference or join or exclude between sets. We finally got regular expression escaping built into JavaScript. Now you don't have to install a library for that anymore. There's regular expression pattern modifiers. So you know that thing at the end of a regular expression, like G for global or I for case insensitive? Now you can use those inside of the regular expression. So you can have a group inside the regular expression that is case insensitive. So that's pretty cool. Another regular expression thing for capture groups. I never really used these, but you can create a capture group, give it a name. Before they had to be unique, now you can reuse them. We got this new promise.try. You can pass a function in, and it will, whether or not that function returns a promise, will resolve to a promise. So this is useful for dealing with like legacy code that maybe sometimes returns a promise, sometimes doesn't. And now we have 16-bit floating point numbers. So check out this article, goes through all of those new features. And I also made a video about it. So if you like videos, you can check it out on the syntax channel. I go over all those new features and show some examples. In other news, a new PNG specification was released. So the last PNG specification was released 20 years ago, but they finally released a new one. It's got HDR support. Supports animated PNGs. Anyone here know you could have animated PNGs? Yeah, like GIFs or GIFs. And now they officially support EXIF data. I thought they always did, but I think it's actually in the spec now. And EXIF data is like that extra information you can add to an image. A lot of times it'll tell you like what camera it was taken on, or sometimes it can have location data in it, but now that's officially supported in the PNG spec. Biome v2 was released. Anybody here start using Biome? So it's a linter, and basically a replacement for ESLint and Prettier. So it's a linter and a formatter, but it's written in native code, so it's super fast, and they just released version 2. So a lot of React projects are adopting this, basically just to kind of like speed up your CI pipeline, speed up the linting that's happening inside of your editor. And v2 was finally released. It's got some stuff like type-aware linting rules with no TypeScript compiler. So basically, lint your whole code base, get potential type linting issues, but you don't have to run the TypeScript compiler on top of that, so that also speeds things up. They have a new plugin feature where you can create custom linting and formatting rules and use those inside of Biome. And they revamped their import organizer. So personally, I haven't tried this yet because I spent years perfecting my ESLint config, but I might give it a try. Also, Vite version 7 was released. And the big news about this is it's built on top of roll down. So roll down is a native port of roll up, which is what Vite was built on top of. But now that it's native, it means it's a whole lot faster. And it's essentially a drop-in replacement. Yeah?
Native how?
So when you, before, let's say you ran from the command line, roll up, specify your config file, and then it bundled it up. Rollup itself was written with TypeScript. So essentially that was just running with Node.js. They did a backwards compatible port into, is it Rust? I think they, anybody know? I think they used Rust, but basically they created a binary that does all the same stuff that same rollup command did that was written with TypeScript, but now it's native code, so it's just a whole lot faster. You as a developer don't have to care about that, and that's the nice thing about v7 is it's a drop-in replacement. So if you have a project right now that's using Vite, you can install version 7. Under the hood, that now uses roll down Vite, and your builds will just be faster, basically. You can look at their release. They talk about some of the speed ups. They might have it here. Yeah, specifically, there was an announcement of roll down Vite that had like a table of how fast things were getting sped up to. And this is from Void Zero, which is the company that Evan Yu founded. So Evan Yu is creator of Vue.js, creator of Vite. He founded this company, they got investor funding, And now they've been working on things like roll down. But to give you some context, yeah, so GitLab, I believe their front end was based on Vue. It might not be anymore, but they had a build time using Vite that was about 2.5 minutes, swapped it out for roll down Vite, went down to 40 seconds. Excalidraw, you might have seen it before. It's this online, oh look at that, I have a diagram that I've written. But it's an online diagram, you can like draw arrows and lines and stuff like that. This whole thing's an open source project that's built with React, and they're using Vite. Their build went down from 22 seconds to 1.4 seconds. So basically drop-in replacement and everything's a whole lot faster. There are some breaking changes, but not a lot. So I linked the migration guide if you're going from V6 to V7. And I think anything that was marked as deprecated in V6 is gone in V7. So if you were using anything in Vite that was marked as deprecated, then you'll have to fix that. But other than that, it's just like some stuff under the hood. You can essentially just install it and benefit from the speedups. So yeah, good stuff. It feels like the whole ecosystem is moving in that direction of native, everything's faster. Nuxt v4 was released. Personally, haven't had a chance to check it out yet. But this is big news for Nuxt because they're copying Next.js. They have an app directory now, which a lot of people were freaking out about that. I think they literally just moved all of this stuff, which by convention used to be at the root of your project. Now it's inside the app directory. They've revamped data fetching, TypeScript, the CLI is faster, so yeah, Nuxt v4 is out. And in related news, Nuxt Labs was acquired by Vercel. So Nuxt Labs was a way to deploy your Nuxt apps, and it's kind of a way that the core Nuxt team, which is a completely open source project, was making money. But then Vercel acquired them, along with a bunch of other people that heavily work on Nuxt and Nitro. And Nitro is essentially like a framework that other frameworks are being built on top of. So Nuxt is built on top of Nitro, TanStack Start is built on top of Nitro, Solid Start is built on top of Nitro, but Sebastian Chopin was the guy behind Nuxt Labs. Daniel Rowe was one of the core contributors to Nuxt and Puya, and then Infu was a core contributor to Nitro and Nuxt, but all of them now work at Vercel. So people were freaking out online. I think it's a good thing. I think now, instead of having to worry about like trying to get funding from like donations and stuff, now they all have full-time jobs, they have developer salaries, and they've reassured us. There's a post on the discussion board on the Nuxt repo that talks about the future of Nuxt and what it means now that Daniel Rowe is working at Vercel. But everything I see points to now they actually can make a living, and they're still going to keep working on all the open source stuff. So there's no plans to make Nuxt closed source or anything like that. TypeScript 5.9 had a beta release, so we should be seeing 5.9 soon. Chrome 37 shipped the if statement in CSS. Anybody heard of or used the if statement in CSS? It's a thing. So now, I think that actually makes CSS a Turing complete language. But you can basically have properties with conditionals. So if this media query is true, then apply this value to the width. Otherwise, apply this value to the width. This article has a few other ways where you might use the if statement. There's also like these other functions. I haven't really used this much, but you could say like, if the browser supports the OKLCH, which is this way of creating colors, use this, otherwise use that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And people have already started doing weird stuff with it. So do I even have, I don't have Chrome. What, do I have Chrome? I'm gonna unplug my screen just in case anything weird pops up. But it only works in Chrome right now, and I'm inside of Firefox. But check this out. Someone recreated logic gates. Oh, you can't see. But also, I need to relaunch Chrome because it's out of date. And then, I won't be able to demo this. But trust me, go to DenverScript.com, click on that link, and if this site loads properly, then these are all checkboxes, and it's basically and, or, not, and exclusive or gates. And so if you've ever seen like a Boolean table, basically you can play around with these check marks, and the things will light up according to the gates. And it's all CSS, no JavaScript. Yeah. The React compiler published docs. So the React compiler was in, I think it might still be in beta, but released last year. But finally, they have some docs on it, so you can go through the introduction, installation, talk about how to use the React compiler, and then JSON module scripts are now baseline newly available. So this is one of the features that got added in ES 2025, which is the ability to import modules with a type assertion. So you've probably seen, if you've been in the TypeScript role, you've probably seen this before, like when you want to go import a JSON file. But this is now supported in all major web browsers. So instead of having to like fetch a JSON file or like use a bundler or something like that, you can now import directly from a JSON file by giving it a type. So that's pretty great. That's all the news. There's a bunch of interesting articles here that I thought I would highlight, and you can check out if you'd like. I will point out Exploring JavaScript ES 2025 edition is free to read online. So if you're new to the world of JavaScript or want to, I don't know, learn more, that book is free, check it out. Tons of conferences coming up. I added a few since the ones we showed last time. So Webflow is happening in New York in September. Very soon, Big Sky DevCon is happening in Montana. I also added, Smashing Conf is happening in New York. NGConf in Baltimore, JSConf, which I had never heard of, but it's happening in October. They just announced their speakers. And then, if you're looking forward to next year, React Advanced Canada is happening in March of next year if you want to start making plans. All these links, DenverScript.com, a bunch of interesting new releases you can check out as well. Let's move things right along. Does anybody have any news they would like to share from the world of JavaScript, or in general? Great. Then without further ado, I'm going to invite Gage up to give a talk. He needs to set up really quick. In the meantime, feel free to use the bathroom, grab some food, grab some drinks, and we'll be going.
So yeah, you just mentioned having some Seattle too. Yeah. Cool. I know you really a long time ago. Like in Pennsylvania, and I was really cool. It was the social aspect of that, but I do remember hands like to simplify at this stage and stuff like that. It was a fun time, but I always enjoyed it. I remember distinctly at that time realizing I don't have this great build.
Testing.
Hello. All right. If you please could put your hands together and give your undivided attention to Gage, who's going to be talking about Phaser, the game print.
Hi everyone, my name is Gage Smith, and today I'm just going to give a very high-level kind of introduction to Phaser, which, no fault on CJ, is actually a framework and not an engine. We'll get into that a little bit later and why that's important. But yeah, so Don't expect anything super technical. This is just kind of, I stepped my toes in it. I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff I thought was really cool and a little bit about the stuff I did. And if you have any super intricate questions, well, guess what? There is a very good documentation site for it that might be at the end of this slide in a link. So if you have something that's a bit more complicated, we'll find that out later. So let's begin. So again, as I said, hi everyone, my name is Gage Smith, and let's begin our PowerPoint presentation, or so we think. All right, now that we've got our little guy in, let's go in and start the presentation. He's a little bit slow because he's so small, kind of a little bit slack. And there we are, now we are in the classroom. Presentation. All right, how does the billboard look online, everyone? All right, good. So yeah, more about myself. My name is Gage Smith. I got into video games super early when I was a kid. I was that kid who got the 64 for Christmas, screamed, cried, screamed some more, cried some more, had to go to my room, played my 64 till about 4 a.m. Did the same thing with my Nintendo Switch, not my Switch, my apologies. A Wii, when I first got a Wii. I'm a huge Hideo Kojima fanboy. I really believe I love all his work. Metal Gear Solid 4 probably made me use like 3 boxes of tissues at the end. Beautiful series, beautiful game. Regretfully, I still have not played Death Stranding 1. Need to sell a kidney so I can finally afford a Death Stranding PS5 so I can get a Death Stranding 2. And a little bit about myself is I'm actually not from Colorado. I'm from Tennessee. As you see above in a picture of myself at young, I have my proof of owning a pet raccoon, which is, as you might not know, is a mandated thing in Tennessee. If you have anyone in Tennessee that says otherwise, they don't want you to know about the pet raccoon. And funny enough, one of the reasons I really fell into loving with computers, programming, and everything above going into that was my handwriting, still pretty atrocious, but especially during a young age, was so bad that my dad's doctor said I could get a scholarship to Vanderbilt because she was so confident I'd be a great doctor just on my signature alone. And as you're going to see going forward, well, I can't decide on PowerPoint formatting, so please cut me loose like that. But let's get into the meat. What is Phaser, and why is Phaser? So Phaser, again, no apologies to CJ, is a HTML framework for making 2D browser games. You can try to do some magic to get 3D, but it is very tricky. You are bending the rules of reality for a browser game, so there's many other things. It is mainly for 2D games. It runs incredibly fast, and the key point about being a framework is it is in the weeds using HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and so on. It is not something like Unity, Godot, or Unreal, where you have a nice little framework and UI and such, but they're actually working on that. It's fully open source, and it's really compact, really fast. Good to get something in. Again, it's running in the browser, needs to bear with it. It's had a ton of support throughout the years. I think this is a little bit wrong. It's supposed to be 11 years now of ongoing support, a lot of great documentation, and if you ever played a game called Vampire Survivor, you were playing something using Phaser. And finally, this is kind of why I personally wanted to talk about it. Is I do prefer Godot, but doesn't seem like it would fit a DenverScript thing. Well, this was much more in line. And again, we're just touching the surface of this framework. It is absolutely amazing the work they're doing into it. As you see in this top right, we actually have an editor that would be more in line with Unity, Godot. You can actually move sprites around, which if you don't like hitting moving pixels by 25% all the time, it's lovely at that. There is actually modular scripting, which is insanely cool and insanely useful. It's a bit above my intellectual pay grade, but it's really cool. And again, the community is incredibly active. I'm on the Discord. People will answer questions anytime you need. People are working live on their projects, and it's just fabulous. And one of my favorite things is this little thing down here is their example page, where if you need to know how to do a very specific thing, well, there's about 800 plus examples that people have of just little shortcuts and little snippets of, animations, of game mechanics, of counting, that is absolutely fantastic. Where that way you don't have to either argue with ChatGPT for 30 minutes to get it to work, or you have to go on Stack Overflow and hear someone say a better opinion than the other person. And what have I been doing it? Well, originally I had this idea of a game called Monsters and Menus. The idea was you would fight monsters that would be menus, kind of like a drop-down list. You click the drop-down list and that's how you do damage, and they would do stuff like this. It was a puzzle game, kind of like I said, the monster menus, and it turned out to be a little bit too ambitious. A lot of figuring out how the game was going to work, what's the reward structure, and all that was a little bit more tedious, while also learning phaser, while also getting the presentation. And I got terrible dexterity, so I can't even juggle in real life, let alone multiple things like this. So that's kind of where we got to see this little thing I'm doing right now. And yeah, this is kind of what I'm doing here, because I had to make a presentation and a game, so why not make the presentation the game? I'm gonna grab water. Go, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, thank you. What a nice look at it. Sorry about that. But yeah, as you see here, that is kind of what got me into game dev and what got me into programming. Is there's a bit of mystique and mysterium to them, where we can write a small little script that can make it appear like someone's doing something else while you're going away. And that is actually at the heart of why I got into Phaser, Unity, and all of these game developments. Is yes, we are very science, but I think there's a good spirit of creativity that can still be in play. But as I said, this is kind of just still a little high-level look. There's so much more to go through. Please check it out. There's fantastic projects. You might make the next Vampire Survivors. You might make something else. Just please don't make 3D. Thank you so much. Here are my links above. I just made that blue sky today, so if it seems a bit empty, it will be more soon. Thank you so much for all your time. Here's some resources for you, and to just give credit where credit due, the sprite was thanks to the asset pack on itch.io from spritelandsassetpack.com and the link above. Here's Phaser. Phaser this is a very nice getting started, and here's the example page where I would ask everyone to check out, because it is very cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. We have plenty of time for questions. I guess I'll start. How easy would it be to just see like a code example? Like, could you show us the script that made it so that you would go get a drink of water? And are you willing to demystify, like, was it on a timer, or did you press a button before you got up to make it happen?
Oh, it was just a timer. It is literally just, thanks to Phaser setting up the animations walk, it was just setting up a Phaser timer for a button that would press while I was coughing, and I had to kind of fit with the time, like, okay, I hope this plays out right where I walk and it's not talking already. But then just play some animations. I had it where I was actually going to walk a little bit, but I had to fit it with that. And then just kind of fiddling with the some timers to get it to kind of line up correctly. Really made me want to, whenever I go back and look over the code, I really want to, I swear every time I make a game, I need to just make a separate utility that just does timeouts in a better way, because so much of the time I'm doing a game or something, I'm just like, wow, I use so many timeouts.
Could we maybe see either that code example, or maybe even pull up like the Phaser getting started? I'm just curious, like, what's it like to make a game? Like, do you create an instance of a class, or is there like...
Oh, so a little bit on that. Yeah, so for the game, this is something that's great for Phaser and a lot of game engines. We create two scenes. This scene right here is a classroom scene, and that's where it handles a lot of the logic for this nice little board up here, and setting up all this. The beginning screen, the beginning screen, which I just called PowerPoint screen, is just this first slide set up, and it's set as the background, and set up a scene transition at the left of the screen so that it appears that I'm walking into the room. And the neat thing about this is that it's a completely functional billboard that I can move back and forth, which is something really neat there, which is simply just setting the background on this little rectangle object, and just saying if using phasers input mapping to when I press E or Q to just remove -1 or +1 on the array so that it goes to the slide I need. Had a fun little moment where I tried to add a slide and I completely forgot what 4 years of university taught me, which was arrays start with 0, and I was like, why isn't this working? There's 5 slides, and I was like, oh crap.
Other questions?
Yeah, to build on what CJ was asking, can you kind of give a high-level overview of what the split between using that UI that you showed for managing scenes and so on, and actually the code part? Like, what is it like when you're moving in between the two? Is it more like After Effects, where you're doing a lot of UI application clicking, dragging, versus actual like code and so on?
Yeah, I can bring that up real fast. Because it is nothing but code. This is just all programmed in JavaScript. It was all done in VS Code, but for this one it's Code SS. So it is all code. The editor, I messed with it for a free trial, a lot more than doing the menu game, because it's very easy to move menu pieces around. But in this one, cannot bring up the code at this moment, but yeah, because there's something really annoying. I don't know why, but it's what I get for not playing with Linux enough, but I can't really bring up the code editor at this time, but this will be on my GitHub. It is nothing but JavaScript and a little bit of CSS and an HTML file. The neat thing about the editor, which some detail I kind of got caught in mention, is only for premium accounts, which there's a 30-day trial. But if you're really interested in it, it's really, really cool. The neat thing about it is when you put in a file, it generates the code right there, and you can just automatically mess with the code. So on something like Godot, where obviously you put an object and it does a lot of things behind the scenes, this is kind of with the engine, the car engine right up in view while you're dragging and dropping. So if you drop an object, it will automatically put in that code, into the editor, which is incredibly cool.
Nice. Other questions? Going once. Going twice. All right, thank you so much, Gage.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take another minute or two while Dave sets up. And yeah. I don't know why I just called him Dave. His name is Daniel. Daniel Cat. I sell a lot of things, I guess. I thought I said Dave. So maybe he's Dave.
CJ, speaking of raccoons, they will appear.
Oh yeah.
Did you give the raccoon talk too? Is that someone else?
No.
No, it was not.
Is that
It was
Can we go watch it?
coincidence.
Is it recorded?
That one was not. No, that was several years ago.
Very interesting.
All right. Next up, we have Daniel Cat, who's going to be giving a talk, Why String 1 Equals Number 1 from JavaScript to Quantum Tunneling. Please put your hands together.
Okay, cool. So when I started coding, I learned with very strongly typed languages. So I was a little surprised when I first started learning JavaScript. Coming from like C# and Java, we have to explicitly declare every type for every single variable. Or I can, let me see here, I can open up the console and I can type something like this. The string 1 equals the number 1. And it tells me true, you know, because one of them is a number, one is a string. It's kind of crazy to me that things like that can happen. I think this is a very fundamental question everybody has when they start with JavaScript. Why does it do things like this? How is that possible, etc.? So I decided to dig into it a little bit, and the short answer I found, if you want the short answer, is because of quantum tunneling. But the longer answer takes, you gotta look, I had to go back and look into the origins of JavaScript, as it were. And I'll apologize, this talk, I feel like it got a little long-winded. I proposed the idea to these guys as a lightning talk, and I just kept adding more and more stuff and going deeper. So I apologize if it's a little dry and long, but hopefully it's somewhat interesting. Okay, I will jump in. So why does string 1 equal the number 1? Well, I didn't know this, but JavaScript was written in just 10 days 30 years ago, which to me is crazy. I can't even settle on a variable name in 10 days. And it was when the web was newer, so things were supposed to kind of just work. You hear that a lot. And the web was a lot simpler. It was mostly a lot of forms and inputs, and even the inputs that were numbers got passed in as strings, and they didn't want people getting all these type errors when they tried to compare, you know, numbers and strings and that sort of thing. So those are some of the intentions. But I was wondering, like, how did this double equal sign end up, like, how does it actually do a cross-type comparison? Because that doesn't seem that simple. So digging into it, I found something called the loose equality operator, or it used to be. The triple equals is the strict equality operator. But there's actually no method for this, no method for the double equal sign. I thought it has to be a built-in thing, but actually no. JavaScript, sorry, I'm newer to JavaScript, so a lot of this was new to me. JavaScript is totally defined by a spec. What, there's no method? No, just a spec. Which is like, okay, I wrote it, the European Computer Manufacturers Association script, or ECMAScript. Like, raise your hand here if you've heard of ECMAScript before. Or maybe ES 2025, which, you know, it was in the news, so everybody had, and keep your hand up if you've actually read any of the spec. I see a few. That would have been, I would have put my hand down too a few weeks ago before I dug into this. It's essentially just a whole bunch of text, which we'll see. that defines how JavaScript should work. It's not really, I'm like, oh, it's a programming language, but it's just thousands of pages of text, essentially. And somewhere in there, I was wondering if the loose equality operator would be defined. So I went and looked. And it was. I found it. This is it. I can open it. This is what it looks like. It's just text. And if you wanted to, you could scroll. Careful, a few times when I opened this website, it crashed my browser. Uh-oh. Because there's just so much text, I guess. Anyway, this is that. And I want to focus in on step 6 here, which would be our case. If x is a string and y is a number. And it's a little bit recursive. It just calls itself is loosely equal, which I don't know if I mentioned. This is the new name. It used to be called the, whatever I said before, loose equality operator, but they got rid of that. Anyway, it just calls another function called toNumber on the string, and then it compares them, so it turns them into numbers. But how does it turn them into numbers? I don't know. I thought this was neat too. I'd never seen this. The bang, the exclamation point, means this function cannot return an error. Just a syntax thing. Anyway, so I went and looked up toNumber, and this one, if you look at step 6 again, this is where we are. It says if your argument was a string, run this other function. I thought this was a bit redundant, because as we know from the previous step 6, x is a string. So for this case, I don't know. And then it calls yet, like I said, yet another function, string toNumber, which seems kind of redundant. And then I went and found this one, and at first I was confused because there was no step 6, so I read the first steps. We're getting deep, we're like 5 decimals deep into the spec, which means it's getting close, I think. And the main part of this one is this parse text function, and a string numeric literal, whatever the heck that is where it goes next. So I went and found the parse text, which is in a totally different section in the spec. And notice now things started to get more abstract. Like there's a lot more words and a lot less steps and logic. That's because eventually, some of these terms, I could read some of them. Like the goal symbol is what we're expecting the string to be parsed into. In this case, it was that string numeric literal, which could be a number, but it could be like scientific notation or exponents or imaginary number, complex numbers, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into all these because they're a little dull. But step 2, yes, this is what describes how the parsing should work. But there's no code, so I was wondering, like, where does this actually happen? This sentence or two full of ECMAScript definitions. It turns out it happens in the JavaScript engine, of course, which is something I'd heard of, but didn't really know what it was until I started looking into this. Engines, actually, there's a few. Here's some of the more popular ones. And each one, what it does, from my understanding, is it takes the raw text, like the .js, the text in the .js file, compiles it, makes an abstract syntax tree. That's a whole step I'm just going to leave out. And then it runs it, and it returns whatever the ECMAScript says it should return for that input of JavaScript. So it's just code that runs a spec that runs code, defines code. Anyway, I decided to look at V8 because I use Chrome a lot and Node a lot, so that seemed to make the most sense. And oh yes, I actually brought a physical representation, in case you've never seen it, of the V8 engine. It's right here. For those of you who can't see it, this is a bottle of V8 vegetable juice. If you want some. Spicy? Yeah. Anyway, I'm just kidding. That's not the V8 I'm talking about. I'm talking about the V8 internal combustion engine, or ICE, which it has 8 cylinders. That's where the 8 comes from. And they're arranged in a V shape, which is where the V comes from. I found this really cool WebGL animation of a V8 engine being put together. That's the main reason I included it in here. It'll start shortly. There's a link too if you want to go check it out. I can just zoom back a little bit. Pretty cool, right? That's obviously also a joke. I meant to talk about the V8 JavaScript engine, which is a little less interesting. It's basically just C++ code made by Google. It's highly optimized, open source. You can go look at it if you really wanted to. So if I wanted to dive farther into this, you would have to actually go parse through all the C++ code, which is where I drew the line and decided that's not something I'm going to do. and then I did it. Came back. So this is skipped a few steps to shorten this, but this is a good entry point. This is C++ now, not spec code, whatever you call that. And it's the string to number function, which would run, one parsing all that JavaScript, it would take the string and try to convert it to a number. And there's a lot of code here. But eventually it boils down to this function at the bottom, after all these exceptions and errors, and string to double. So I went and found the string to double function. And that one, there's 4 different versions. These are overloads, and I don't think we have them in JavaScript, I'm not sure. So if you're not familiar, it's functions with the same name but different parameters. And typically they do the same thing. And we actually have to start with the 4th overload. That's what that above code would take you to. And then I looked at this one, does some type conversion stuff, and then this line of code, it actually throws you back to the 1st overload. Oh yeah, before I go there were notes. There's notes in the open source VA code that says this is the ES6 implementation of that particular section of ECMAScript, so it kind of links back to what it's doing. So you can follow along. Anyway, the first overload was kind of dumb. It just runs a string to double, runs a function called internal string to double. And that's about it. So I went and looked up that one, first comment, I'm like, oh, I finally made it. This converts a string to a double. This is what I'm looking for, I think. And then you compare the 2 numbers. But actually, it has, a whole bunch of, this one I had to cut out a whole bunch of stuff, edge cases and that stuff. And I got down to this thing called the stirtod, I've been calling it. And actually, I made a mistake here. This code is from an earlier version of V8. Now it uses the fast float library, which I think I can open it, as it says here, is 4 to 10 times faster than stirtod. But the stirtod's still in there, and it takes you back to the same place. This is it's like a fallback in the V8 engine, anyway. It has an interesting story. So I looked up stirtod, which is in a different part of the V8 engine. It stands for string to double, which is probably what I should call it. Google made it as part of the V8 engine, and it became its own library, and then in classic Google fashion, they ditched their own product, and then made a new one, or found a new one for this fast float library. Anyway, this is the stirtod, and it boils down to, I thought this was funny. They have something called guess in here, speaking of variable names, which doesn't inspire confidence. But it runs this line of code. The stirtod calls the double stirtod. So I went there, and this is talk about bits and bytes and stuff, which now I actually understand. I was a little intimidated when I first got here. But we would hit this case, we have a positive exponent of 1. This line in particular, the results of the conversion would run yet another function called readUint64. So I went and found that one in the same file. And then this one, I'll stop for a sec. This is where the magic actually starts to happen, where it's not just functions inside functions. I'm not that familiar with C++, so I had a lot of learning to do. But this is the key line. The int digit, which is the digit we want, is equal to this. A buffer is essentially an array of string characters, but we only have one element in the string, it's the character 1. Anyway, so it boils down to this, essentially. The digit equals the character 1 minus the 0, 1. Why the heck are they subtracting characters? How does that even work? How does that work? I don't know. I will explain soon, because I went and tried to learn. So how C++ works, it has this thing called integer promotion, where if you have an arithmetic operator and characters, it actually converts them to 32-bit ints, which is what I have here. 1 and 0 characters converted to their ACSII encoded integers, and then binary. This is the 8-bit representation of those 2 numbers. And then it expands them, so there's 32 bits. It's just 32 zeros or ones that make up each one. A lot of extra zeros, which I found adding more zeros actually makes the math way faster, even though it uses more memory. That's another hole I don't need to dive into, unless someone really wants to later. So this brings up a few questions, like why the heck does C++ do this when you have 2 characters and a minus sign? Is there like a spec like JavaScript? Is it just built? There is a spec. C++ 23 is the latest one. They call it the standard, which I found a little pretentious. I don't know. I'm not going to get into this because this is another boring rabbit hole, but like we have the JavaScript language defined by the JavaScript spec implemented by the C++ language defined by the C++ spec. How far does it go? Maybe we'll find out. Oh yeah, how does it know that 1 should become 49 and 0 should become 48? Well, there's a whole nother standard called the ASCII, character encoding standard. You may have encountered it at some point. I have a link if you're interested. But really, the important part about this, every character in all types of languages can be converted to an integer. And they are in order, which allows this line down here. You can do simple arithmetic by taking any digit, its integer value, and subtracting the integer value of 0, which is what we saw up here. That's why we take the 1 and we subtract character 0, because that math, based on that standard, gives you the correct mathematical answer you're looking for. Anyway, once we have these converted, how do we actually subtract them? I was wondering. So
I'm going into assembly before you click on it.
Oh, sorry. I will continue. Again, to parse this down, I left out a whole bunch of stuff I learned that I think was interesting, but made it the presentation a little long. Anyway, here's the assembly code, because C++ compiles into assembly code. For what we just saw, the first 2 lines, it just says save 1 number to this location, 1 number to this location, and then subtract those 2 memory locations. But how does it know how to subtract? This surprised me, binary subtraction. The CPU does not know how to subtract. Anybody else know that? We got one. Yeah, I've never been into the lower level computers or home electronics. Maybe those people would know. Anyway, this is what it does. It doesn't subtract. It takes the numbers, and then it inverts the second. So every 0 becomes 1 and vice versa. And then we have inverted 48, and then for math reasons, you have to add 1 to it, and now it's the representation of negative 48. And then you add 49 and 48. And when I say add, you just take this 1 plus this 0 equals 1. This 0 plus this 0 equals 0. And that's it. So we boiled it down to like 1s plus 0s from where we started. But how does it add a 1 and a 0, or a 0 and a 0? It's because of transistors, which I was also not that familiar with. But it's a very small electronic thing that's either charged or not charged. Well, actually, I have it up here. Like a high charge is between this voltage in like a high-powered computer, modern computer, and a low charge is below 0.35 volts. And if it's high, it represents a 1, low is a 0, and you can, I made this diagram thing with P5, which is a whole nother thing. Anyway, when you turn it on, the properties of the silicon, this is Silicon Valley in the middle, I think, changes, and the electrons flow across, and it positively charges this thing in the middle. They're not flowing the right way because I didn't build this thing very well. Anyway, I turn it off, and there's no electron flow, so there's no charge in the middle, or no charge-ish because of that range. I'm like, well, why is there a range? I thought it was either 0 or 1, like either there's an electron or there's no electron. What's in the middle? I'm not that well versed in physics or whatever this is. Anyway, I realized I learned this is due to quantum tunneling. Okay, because modern CPUs, the transistors have gotten so tiny, the walls that block the electrons are like microns, which I'm told are really small, 3 to 5 microns. This is probably like zillions of microns. Anyway, and that's close enough the electrons can tunnel through. The electron, when you zoom in enough, it behaves like a wave, and it can be in multiple places simultaneously. This is quantum tunneling, essentially. Which I think is kind of a cool metaphor, because like the double equals in JavaScript, where we started, you think computer languages are very absolute, but actually the way that one deals with different types is kind of wishy-washy, on purpose. And even the 0s and 1s that I thought were either on or off are not. They're like mostly on or mostly off. Because, did I mention the quantum tunneling, the electrons will move where they shouldn't, or just like shoot off into space, that kind of thing? So why do electrons quantum tunnel is where we are. And that brings me to part 2 of this talk, quantum physics. Okay. Now, Albert Einstein said in his I'm just kidding. I didn't go that far. Maybe next time. But that's as far as I decided to go. And then I wrote this little, thanks for sticking with me for it. I know it's a bit, at least I had fun researching it. I was curious. This is a sentence where I tried to summarize everything I presented. I'm going to read it for you, and I hope after that, some of this makes sense. It all makes sense to me, but I wrote it. Anyway, JavaScript's intentional decisions about loose equality, as defined in the ECMAScript, direct the V8 C++ engine to recognize valid string representations of numbers, the string numeric literal, and convert their characters to integers by subtracting 32-bit binary representations of their ASCII character codes, it's the 48 and the 49, stored in transistors, inexactly charged, or not charged, with electrons that slowly dissipate due to quantum tunneling. Or if I was to boil it down to just 8 words, I am paraphrasing a little bit here, JavaScript's loose equality is due to quantum tunneling. Thanks. Oh yes, and don't forget to stick around next time for part 2 of my talk, why 1 plus 1 equals 11. Okay, that's it.
Questions? Yeah? Questions?
I just want to thank you for the time travel through my entire education in college. I followed every bit.
Was that fun?
No, it's not. And it's ASCII is typically how it's referred. ASCII.
ASCII character
ASCII.
codes, thanks. Yeah, I think the stir Todd I made up too.
I like that.
But I appreciate it. I am not from a totally formal computer science background, so I think a lot of the stuff that might have been required courses in college I skirted around, kind of came back to through this.
Other questions?
Is there any form of simple way to put it of why 32-bit is easier to do math on than the 8-bit?
Yeah.
It's just adding, you figure if it's just adding the 2 to each other 8 times, why is adding it 32 times faster?
From what I understand, I'm not an expert on this, but it is due to memory allocation and overflow. Because if you add 2 8 bits, I'm told there's a very high chance it will overflow, as in it'll run out of space and we'll need 8 more bits. And it has to check that, and then if it needs to, then it has to allocate more memory. And the number of operations, I think I wrote it somewhere in here. Yeah. At a basic level, it was like 5 operations to add 8-bit, arithmetic, whereas 32-bit arithmetic only takes up 2 operations. And then I also learned this is why integers have there's a maximum number you can represent in these 32 bits, which I think like a double or a long or something have more bits, you can have bigger numbers.
Cool.
Yeah.
Other questions?
What potential implications does this have on either you or us?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about it too much.
After the 12 hours of depth of research.
Yeah, that would have been a good thing to back out and think about. I don't know, I feel like sometimes when you, or at least I should say when I go on these deep dives and learn these kind of things, I learn things that I'm not sure how they will help me. And then in the future I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, this is because of that thing I did. I'm blanking on an example now, but I'm hoping in the future I'll have an example. And maybe y'all will as well, I don't know. So that's my only guess, but it's not, I'm not like teaching you about or how to use a new game engine, which could be useful. This is just understanding things maybe you never need to know.
If I could add to that though, I think for me it helps to know that there is literally an algorithm called loose equality comparison. Because I think when you're first learning JavaScript or when you're first learning to program in this way, your instructor might tell you, oh, well, when you see the double equals, it's going to get converted into a number or whatever else. But now you know that that's the algorithm. So it's not arbitrary. You could memorize this and see that, okay. And this is where a lot of the WTF.js comes from. Like if you do a double equals with an array in 0 or 0 in a string, actually, yeah, we could do some of those.
Yeah, someone showed me this just recently. I'm gonna try it. Never tried it before. This one has a few different implicit type conversions. Oops. What's the two lower?
Yeah, you're hitting P, two lowercase, and bam, yeah.
Why not?
So like B plus A plus B plus A gives you the string banana, because there's some not a number in there that gets converted to the string representation of not a number, which is NaN, and then, but yeah, understanding how this stuff works.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why I like JavaScript, because I've learned a lot of this stuff, and so when people complain, I'm like, it's in the spec. Like it's not arbitrary, it's not intuitive, but it is defined somewhere. So.
Thanks, that is neat. And yeah, coming from from what I could count, like 3 people in here who have actually read some of the spec.
I think maybe to answer part of that last question is the real world application of following the flow down as you've gone from ECMAScript to Engine and beyond is that if you're actually tracing down bugs, you realize in this whole flow that you showed, when you hit a certain point, you're using this browser versus this browser, you realize this browser's using Engine whatever, this other one's using V8. That's why you're having a difference in whatever, because their engine is doing something different.
Cool, thanks.
Any questions? Going once. Going twice.
That's cool. Everybody want some juice? Unopened.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you're.
Yeah, I could get some cups. It's cool. Little bucket. I thought.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you so much. All right, it is currently 7:21. We have the space for another 25 minutes, so if you want to chat, introduce yourself to someone maybe that you don't know. We do this meetup the 4th Tuesday of every month, so we're going to do it again next month. Like I mentioned, we're going to try to do lightning talks, so if you have any lightning talk, please submit it. Do we have pizza left over? A couple of pieces if you want that. Grab a drink. Otherwise, out of here by 7:45. Thank you.